If you enjoy listening to The Edge, support them by subscribing to The Edge on iTunes, Stitcher, and you can listen through the iHeartRadio app. Get busy listening.
This is The Edge.
The advantage it means.
They let God spit on me for no reason.
That's horrible.
Is there some comfort in uncertainty, do you think?
You're a degenerate.
Because Australian Shepherds need action.
Wow. Yeah.
This is The Edge.
That's a self-loathing term that I use for.
Oh, got it.
Hi, this is Mark, and welcome to our show. Two conversations in this episode, one with entertainment reporter and journalist Sam Rubin. He'll give us an idea of what's going on in Hollywood with this wave of sexual abuse allegations. Started with the Weinsteins, and it's continued from there. And, of course, on a parallel track, everything going on in Washington and in political life associated with those same controversies. And not all of these offenses are rising to the same level. We'll get into a little bit of that as well. Sam is a 35-year journalist. He has deep ties to the entertainment industry and can give us a real sense of what's going on in Hollywood. And then something happened during our conversation with Sam. Huge news broke out of Hollywood, and you'll hear it as it happens in the conversation. And then nothing says the holidays like comedian Bobby Slayton, the Pitbull of Comedy, will join in the second half of the show. Thank you for being here. Thank you for 5-star reviews on iTunes. They really do help us. When you give us a positive review and a 5-star review, it is magic. It helps keep us alive. Thank you for downloading the show. They've now changed a lot of the ways that the downloads are counted, so when you download, it really matters to our overall count. I've told you before, I'll never do a commercial. I'll never read some spot for some heating company or for some food company that delivers to your house. But I have to ask you to support us in other ways. And the easiest way this time of the holidays is if you're going to shop Amazon, go to our website, edge-show.com. You'll see an Amazon banner there. Just click on it. It's the same Amazon as usual. But because you've clicked through our site, we get a little piece of whatever you spend. So again, edge-show.com. Click on the Amazon banner when you go into an episode or when you see it anywhere on our page. If you click there and do your shopping, we get a little something at the end of your session, and it helps us keep the lights on. A few of you have given us PayPal payments. Wow, that's so cool. Thank you for clicking the PayPal link and just dropping a little something in our electronic tip jar. All right, Sam Rubin for the first half of the show, then Bobby Slayton for the second half. Happy holidays, and thanks for being here.
You're listening to The Edge with Mark Thompson.
So excited to have Sam Rubin with us. Sam, I first talked to you about coming to visit us when the Weinstein thing broke. And I thought we'd concentrate on Hollywood and the effects of this sexual harassment and sexual abuse that clearly goes on in a rampant way in Hollywood. I didn't think at the time that it would spread like a wildfire to include TV and print journalism and pretty much and politics in a big way. It's everywhere.
Yeah, the two biggest parlor games in Hollywood right now are, number one, who's next?
Right.
And number two, and I just had this conversation today, can X person come back? And so Carlos Mencia was on our program a very short while ago, and we were talking about, can Louis C.K. come back? And the interesting thing that Carlos said, he goes, Louis C.K. can come back probably at about 30% of what he was. Oh. Which I thought, and I think he's probably thinking of income streams and things like that. But no, we're all sort of reeling with this Charlie Rose thing so quick.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever witnessed that. I mean, you could literally run a stopwatch on it with that article coming out at approximately 2 p.m. Pacific time yesterday.
Washington Post article. And then less than 18 hours later, after his colleagues, deservedly so, blast him on the air. And I thought that is interesting and worthy of analysis. And then just fired. Let's rewind 36 hours ago. Who a career I'd like to have? I'd like to be like Charlie Rose. I get my own show on PBS. I do a morning show that is respected and widely seen.
Right.
Anybody would be thrilled to talk to me.
And you're able to interview any leader almost of any country or
anybody
in the world.
And then whoop,
Right.
There you are.
I had the same thing with Louis C.K. I mean, he had that, as a comic and, creator type.
Right.
He had the same thing. He had his own thing going. And
No, it really is true. And when you read it all in the Post, and I should read an excerpt or two, but essentially there are, for the audience, who maybe some of whom haven't read it, the details of all of these situations with Louis C.K., with Charlie Rose, and Weinstein, they're different but similar in their creepiness.
Well, there's no question about that, but I think it's an important word to bring up is this notion of equivalency. And I think now Senator Franken being dumped into all this, and what Al Franken did was undeniably stupid and sophomoric,
right.
But it's not the same thing.
No.
And I think it does, if this wasn't such a polarized political time, anybody would know that and recognize that.
Right. Well, and the other difference that's happened is that a great many people have spoken for Al Franken.
And that's the only one. You saw the letter
Right.
released very recently, 36 women from Saturday Night Live, Jane Curtin among them, saying that not only did they never witness this, but he treated them all well. But it just begs the question, how well do you know somebody? Funnily enough, when I thought about all this, it's around the time that you and I first met, because Charlie Rose, I'm terrible with years. When did you come to KTTV?
Yeah, 1990, and he was doing that show,
Personalities. And I got a job on that show. And the basic backstory, very quickly, is A Current Affair with Maury Povich was the huge hit. Rupert Murdoch's then wife was embarrassed of that show and said, husband, this show embarrasses me. And then he said, we'll do a show that you'll be proud of. And it was a nightly magazine show that was supposed to be very high-minded. And I interviewed 7 times to get a job to be a reporter on that show. And I think they wanted other people. Larry King was supposed to be the host, all these different hosts. And then they got Charlie Rose. And the first week I did a profile on Beverly Sills. The second week I did a profile on Marilyn Chambers. So the focus of the show shifted very dramatically. And my only experience with Charlie Rose, as British friends of mine like to say, I think recognizing this was a professional mistake, he was very much into his cups. And so I was on the set to do one of these debriefs, the only time I've ever met him. And I said, I'm the guy who did Beverly Sills last week, and it's Marilyn Chambers tonight. And he looked at me and gave me a very nice and long hug and said, this is not your fault. But funnily enough, and it's all these sort of Zelig moments. A colleague of mine at the TV station who works behind the scenes said that he was inadvertently quoted in the Washington Post article about Charlie Rose because he worked on the show for 6 or 7 years, and he's the one who said to one of the women, "Oh, the shower trick."
Oh yeah,
because they were all aware of that. But
and that provokes the question: if everybody's aware of it, isn't it the responsibility of someone to speak up on behalf of these women, or until a complaint is lodged, is it just sort of...
Well, his producer did say that she, now she regrets that she didn't protect her staff, basically, from Charlie.
Well, what's very interesting is this is the first time we have a quote-unquote enabler directly named,
right,
and who is responding to the criticism with, tremendous regret. But...
I thought, and I never knew this, but I saw her name repeatedly along the way. I kind of thought that there was a relationship between the two of them,
Well, she's been with him professionally since like 1990. It was a little extraordinary run.
So, and I'll say this, given the track record, it feels as though she might have had a shower moment with Charlie Rose at some point,
Yeah, certainly. It seems like it's his M.O.
Right.
And that's what so much of this is like Al Franken, it doesn't seem to be his M.O.
Right.
But when you have a phrase like the shower trick, it's an MO,
and then funnily enough, I think there's been exemplary journalism, but sort of incomplete coverage. Have you seen with Leanne Tweeden, who I think has presented herself fine in all this, the actual USO skit, the skit with Al Franken, that there's a videotape of it, and in the skit they do this kiss, and she says, "Al, you only wrote this because you were trying to kiss me. The person who should really be kissed is one of the soldiers."
Right.
And then an anonymous soldier comes up, and she has a nice smooch with him.
Oh.
So, and the general tone and nature of this whole thing was kind of a bawdy thing. It doesn't necessarily excuse what he did.
No, but it was a USO show, and that's the kind of humor they were doing.
Yeah.
And the fact that, I don't know. It's the thing about the Al Franken thing is that in some ways, it all sort of went down the way these things should go, which is someone has a beef with Al Franken. He apologizes. He acknowledges her beef, apologizes for it, and she accepts his apology. And they and that should be how things happen in a lot of these cases, I think.
In theory, he submitted himself to a Senate investigation, so maybe there's a censure of some sort.
Right.
But that's kind of the end of it, one would hope. Although in these times, who knows?
Well, but she just signed a book deal with Sinclair
Did she
Publishing,
really?
I think.
No,
yeah, like
she
the
signed it
next
with
day.
Sinclair?
Like the
Oh,
next,
that's
yeah.
hilarious. Oh, that's
At least
good.
I read that. I mean,
Sinclair's
that
the
could be fake news,
right-wing
too.
media
the same people
outlet.
who did Bannon's book and Gorka's book, and so.
Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, there was.
But I don't know why she would apologize and then sign the book deal, or accept the apology rather. And
But
then,
one other thing for the three of us, quote unquote, as men to consider, and I'll tell you.
why are we quote unquote men?
No, but I'll tell you.
I think it applies to me. I'm kind of
a conversation that I had.
girlish.
All right, I don't remember what I did 3 weeks ago. I certainly don't remember what I did 30 years ago. I would say, I don't think I have behaved inappropriately. And when I was having this conversation with another woman, she was like, if you raped somebody over the last 30 years, you'd actually remember that.
Right.
But certainly over the course of 30 years, I've said inappropriate things. I've said flirtatious things. I suspect many of us have. We've all done that. And then I think another thing that's taking place now, Conan O'Brien actually had a very funny tweet about it, that the most common communication now are men in powerful positions texting women they haven't spoken to for years saying, "Are we cool?"
Right.
So,
Yeah, I saw that.
Well, and I think there's someone, I think Maxine Lapidus tweeted the other day, the good men are looking back and wondering what women they've hurt, and the bad men are wondering what women can hurt them.
oh, that's interesting. That's very
That's a
interesting.
great.
And I tell you, I think sometimes there's sort of a forensic analysis. If you look at the LA Times expose of Brett Ratner and Russell Simmons, you can tell, because this is the hot topic now, right? This is everything everybody wants to talk about. So somebody at the Times looked at Russell Simmons' book, and in his own book, he's like, I'm paraphrasing, I like drugs, I like money, I like women. And I hired this guy, Brett, because he was pretty good at getting me the women.
Right.
And they looked at that paragraph, and then they kind of worked backwards. They're like, oh, I bet there's something here. And as it turns out, it appears to be something here. But interestingly enough, and I think this also merits exploration, certainly one of the charges against Russell Simmons is very serious and severe. At the moment, this could change by the time people listen to this, no professional censures at all. HBO's continuing with this program, all these other things.
Right.
So,
well, that's a whole other issue. I mean, rock and roll and music, the music business in general, is a whole other can of worms, and we saw that when Bowie died and people started going, he was having sex with 14-year-old girls, and people just didn't want to hear it about Bowie, but now the can of worms, the top is off, and that's a deep well of stories of,
Well, the people, again, and this is kind of the scuttlebutt, Mark, that's now taking place. People also say, if now the focus is on-air personalities, well, you know what? Here's the 10 other people who should be looking over their shoulder. Or if the focus is on males behaving in this inappropriate way with other men, here's another 10 you can look at.
Right.
And so on and so forth.
To me, it seems it's men, all of whom have one thing in common: power. They have power over these women who are trying to get a job, in the case of Charlie Rose. And the Charlie Rose stuff, again, just to the shorthand on that particular thing, is here's a girl who's interviewing to be part of the Charlie Rose show, which, by the way, he owns, and there is no HR on it.
Right.
If you got a problem, there's no one to complain to.
Right.
But anyway, he asked her to go out to his place on Long Island or wherever it is, to his country.
Sort his media for a week.
Yeah, country estate. Yeah, we're going to be, and then we'll watch some of my shows and we'll talk about it. And then, of course, he makes very aggressive sexual moves on her, and she's in tears, and it's ugly and awful. And that's just one of the stories. But what does he have? Power over her. In this case, direct power over her ability to get the job that she wants. Ratner and Simmons, same story. Although in the Ratner-Simmons case, it's kind of that general power, right? She's not going for a job. At least in one of the cases, it was a 17-year-old model.
The story that she tells is going to their place, and this is the most compelling and damning part of that article. And they're in one of their apartments, I think Russell Simmons' apartment, and then he makes his move, and she turns to Brett Ratner, who brought her there, in essence, like, help me.
Right.
And she says, in a sort of terrifying, defining moment, she immediately realizes, looking at his face, oh, he's in on it too. And that is that's extremely awful and damning.
That's exactly right. It was Carrie Clausen Kaligi, who, just as Sam described, ended up in this situation with Russell Simmons, 17 years old.
Russell Simmons says, hey, this happened. And now here's another phrase that we're not part of any of our vocabularies. It was consensual.
Right.
And the article neglects to mention the rest of the 2 days we spent together. So, then when it boils down to this he said, she said, and decades have passed, I mean...
Right. Oh. Well, yeah, I mean, we're in a very black and white time of this discussion right now, and there's a lot of grays that we're going to have to sort out over time. But I think even if the paradigm shifts to we don't dismiss a woman's claim out of hand as our first instinct, the way we have for however, I'm not saying any of us personally do, but, the way society goes, oh, that's the cost of doing business. Or, oh, that's just rock and roll, or, oh, that's just show business, or, oh, that's just any business, then, those grays will become more clear, I think, over time.
Yeah, then beyond that, you have to look at the specifics of the situation. So you end up with the Franken thing. I'll tell you one that's been kind of lost into the outfield on this. Anthony Weiner seems almost quaint in this conversation.
Right.
I mean, it was ugly, the fact that his kid is involved, and it's ugly that he's chatting these women up on Twitter and on the internet. But
in a weird way, at least there was the safety and space of distance of the internet.
Right.
So, God, I hadn't really thought about that.
He's going to prison for what he did.
That's what makes it quaint to me.
And will there be, it's so interesting to me. If I was Harvey Weinstein, what countries don't have extradition treaties? That's what I'd be looking at. Right. Like, why am I in rehab? I should be in Ecuador. I mean, that's...
Yeah, they have rehab in Ecuador.
Right. Exactly.
If you want to continue with the charade.
Two birds with one stone.
Right.
And then I thought, for example, and I always think my feelings are reflected by many others, and probably they're not. When the Kevin Spacey first broke, I thought, you know what? This guy is incredibly talented, and people appreciate his talent, and show business appreciates his talent.
Right.
And his talent will inoculate him from this. And then, of course, one charge turns into 10 charges or 20 charges or whatever.
Right.
And...
Well, you were making the same assumption he did, which is that his talent would
Right.
inoculate him from
Yeah.
it. And I think that everyone...
That all these guys did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm making too much money for this company for anything to happen. In
Well,
the case of Weinstein.
but in the case of Bill O'Reilly, true.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Boy, they paid out a boatload of money on Bill O'Reilly's behalf.
Right.
Fox. There were settlements in excess of $30 million.
Right.
And
You're making a lot of money for your company if they're willing to spend $30 million to cover your tracks.
And as long as we're talking, so here's one thing, and again, I must confess I do not have personal experience, although I'm happy to share an anecdote from early in my career if you'd like. But what happened to the world of prostitution? In other words, if I'm some rich and powerful guy,
Right.
and I have particular appetites, aren't there ways to satisfy these appetites that would keep me out of every newspaper in the world?
I don't think so, because I think that you don't. It's not a sexual thing that this is. This is touching a different nerve. This is touching the power nerve. This is touching the, in Louis C.K.'s case, I think he was touching some sort of deep, shameful, nerve that, if he was doing something right, like going to a prostitute, that's a good day at the office for a prostitute, having a guy just masturbate in front of you, That's an easy day at work. But I don't think that's what he was going for. I think, like Mark was saying, it's a power thing.
But you see, so, and that's another thing I think that we all do is, if you try to put yourself in their shoes or in their pulled down trousers, what Louis C.K. did has no appeal. What would that what is that?
Right.
It's
It's obviously a psychological tick that, tick is a nice word for it probably. But I mean, the thing about Louis C.K. that's weird about and different from so many of these things is considering his subject matter for the length of his career, it's like this thing is only about 3 degrees past what you thought Louis C.K. was.
Right.
And that's why I kind of think for 2 reasons. I think because of that, he can kind of come back on his own terms, and he has his own giant mailing list and, his own retail outlet. But also I think because he is so brutally honest about both himself and other things, I mean, he might be one of these people who can help sort out these grays and be part of the conversation on the male side of understanding the damage that he did and understanding how messed up it was to do, but still having some insight as to, what goes through men's heads.
Let me get back to the different gradations of humiliation and of sexual aggressiveness, because if you look at this, universe of people, and we've just ticked off a few of them, these different situations, and there are a bunch under each one of these names. The idea that Leanne Tweeden, of all of them, got the book deal sticks out to me as weird because, again, if you were just, and I don't mean to in any way diminish her experience, I really don't, but I do mean to put it in a context alongside all the others, and it doesn't feel as though it rises to the level of. And she was a Playboy model, and she's all these
She
things.
might have Hefner stories, too, though.
Yeah, maybe she has other stories, yeah.
Okay, here we go, if I may.
Yeah.
So this is really eerie and strange, and we are recording this as a live incident. People will hear it otherwise. I have heard this name bubbling around for weeks, and now, Hollywood Reporter, just now, breaking news. John Lasseter taking leave of absence from Pixar amid missteps.
Wow.
And that was and I said to my colleagues that I have been hearing two names for the last several weeks. The other, which I won't mention here, is a major studio head.
Really?
And then Lasseter's name. And I said, if it ever comes to Lasseter, I will be absolutely shocked. And so I sit here shocked. And, now the typical thing, we're calling up the article.
This is a guy, for those who don't know, he is
one of the founders of Pixar.
Yeah. So all that animation that comes through Disney, that's John Lasseter.
Yeah.
I've had a number of difficult conversations that have been very painful for me. It's never easy to face your missteps, but it's the only way to learn from them. As a result, I'm giving a lot of thought to the leader I am today compared to the mentor, advocate, and champion I want to be. It's been brought to my attention that I've made some of you feel disrespected or uncomfortable. That was never my intent. Collectively, you mean the world to me, and I deeply apologize if I've let you down. I especially want to apologize to anyone who's ever been on the receiving end of an unwanted hug or any other gesture they felt crossed the line in any way, shape, or form. No matter how benign my intent, everyone has the right to set their own boundaries and have them respected.
Wow.
And then it goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of...
My hope is that a 6-month sabbatical will give me the opportunity to start taking better care of myself, to recharge and be inspired, and ultimately return with the insight and perspective I need to be the leader you deserve.
That is some self-absorbed shit. That is
too much about...
That is all... Yeah, that is...
Too much about me type thing.
I'm just so stressed. I have to abuse people. I need to go take some time off, and... That's a lot of minimizing in that. A lot of if I offended, and a lot of
Wow,
so Toy Story and the Pixar movie Cars, and Aladdin, all of that stuff that came through this guy.
Yeah, Jobs brought the money, but he brought the vision to that company.
But I tell you, it's one of those things where, and I'll just share with you my honest feelings. I heard this for at least the last 2 weeks to 10 days, that this Lasseter was a name that was coming.
Right.
And I thought, and again, mine are frequent. I've met him over a dozen times, but what I would describe as rather superficial interactions. I'm floored. I'm absolutely floored.
He doesn't read scuzzy, John Lasseter.
No.
He's got a wife and...
No, he's the head of Pixar.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I went to we performed at Pixar on their campus when I was doing Cinematic Titanic, and the corporate culture there is just this lovely place where everyone is just so excited to be there and working on something that means something to them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gee, that's that. Can we take a brief moment to cry?
Yeah.
No, that is really astounding. And I tell you, the Lasseter thing that I think of, and this is a guy who, because of his innate creative abilities, has amassed extraordinary success, riches beyond measure, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Here in Southern California, Disney's California Adventure, Cars has been brought to life in Cars Land. And it really is extraordinary, if you're a fan of that stuff or not. And I was with him on the day of the opening of Cars Land. And this is an experience occasionally you have with people of the highest, formally professional caliber. What was cool, he couldn't believe it. He was blown away by it.
That is cool.
He just, and to sit there.
He was sort of humbled by it.
And he was just.
Check out the rear bumper on that one.
No, but here's Radiator Springs brought to real life.
Yeah.
And he couldn't believe it. And now this. Wow.
Yeah. And those things coexist in that mind. The sense of as you say, a guy who has everything, has all this power, he has all this creativity, humbled by that moment that you just described because he just can't believe that this thing has been created in real life. But it's coexisting in a mind with feeling of power and a feeling of entitlement. I think there's some sexual entitlement almost.
Right.
That,
Well,
I mean, we don't know the specifics yet on him.
And I think a delusional sort of idea that you are attractive because you are this powerful. You know, I think just this this innate thing of women are attracted to me because I am success.
Right.
That's not completely wrong, though.
But which leads,
but it's not an assumption.
But which leads me to something involving our humble host, Mark Thompson. I was thinking about this because it made me think about Charlie Rose. When you and I first met, and you arrived as a weather person at KTTV, whether it was correct or not, your salary was common knowledge, and it was at that time considered extraordinarily high or generous. I mean, well
Way
deserved,
to go, dude.
But quite a bit. So I was thinking about this and I'm making this up. In a world where everybody was making $20 a week, they knew you made $100 a week. Did you find that in either a wanted or unwanted way, there were women who were like, "Hey, Mr. Moneybags has just walked into town"?
No, I didn't. God, that's too bad. No,
I know.
He was too embarrassed.
I'd happily tell you. Also, I was coming off of a back surgery, and I felt very sort of physically compromised. Actually, everybody was really. It's funny. Sam tells that story, and it's funny that from the receiving end, I didn't get any of that. Like I didn't feel like everybody looked at me differently or any of that stuff. I felt really good about my relationship with everyone. It was a really great experience. But I got here as a single man, and everybody doesn't give. They're all looking for movie stars and people who are on primetime series. I remember Jeremy Piven was a big. I used to see him at every party that I was in, and Jeremy Piven now has been mentioned in all of this.
And I tell you, and maybe there's an attempt to review and analyze each circumstance. Jeremy Piven, to his credit, the best statement and the first essentially saying women should be heard, women should be believed, all these principles that we all espouse and agree with. I agree with all that. I'm paraphrasing him. But this didn't happen. And this person is trying to sell a story. And it isn't true. And then the report of Jeremy Piven, which was yesterday, is that he took a lie detector test. And he passed it.
Right.
And I don't know if that was a lie detector test that was administered by him, and you've seen no professional consequence yet for him. His show is still on.
Right.
He hasn't been removed from the show.
And I think that was it just one allegation with him?
Ultimately, I think it was 4.
Okay. Yeah.
But
because the number of allegations seems germane to the conversation.
Yes,
also.
absolutely.
But that often has to do with the quality of the reporting, as much as it does the actual track record of the person,
For everybody who talks about the Washington Post being, sort of doing the work of the liberals or whatever, I mean, this is, Charlie Rose, taking down Charlie Rose, it was just good old-fashioned reporting, and I don't think he's viewed as a right-winger in any way. In fact, I think he's kind of viewed as a moderate. I mean, again, not to make it political, but it has been talked about, the Washington Post certainly, in the most politicized way. And the president talks about the Washington Post in that way. Right. And I think they've just done some great reporting on this. We wouldn't know about this without.
But what's interesting now, and I've never had any legal training, I think this phrase is preponderance of evidence. But here's what makes it true and publishable. It's more than once.
Right.
It's corroborated. But corroborated in that
contemporaneously corroborated.
Right. When this happened 15 years ago, I told my friend. So what I was thinking in a sinister way is if somebody concocted a story 15 years ago and told their friends, it's still a concocted story, but it would pass that muster.
Right.
No, it's true.
It's playing the long game. But
I was going to say that's a hell of a caper.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to get my revenge in 15 years on this guy.
Right.
Now the political side. These politicians, it's being talked about on Capitol Hill. More and more names are bubbling to the surface there. But of course, even as all of these conversations related vis-a-vis politicians and legislators are being heavily played out in the politics of it, the president has had 17 women come forward, a lot of specifics, all the same kind of dance, kind of Weinstein-ish in that way and Charlie Rose-ish in that way, that they all have sort of the same MO in terms of the story they tell about Trump grabbing. He talks about doing it on a tape when he didn't believe that he was being recorded. And yet...
And on Howard Stern, where he knew he was getting recorded, talking about going into the pageant dressing rooms and...
Yeah, exactly. But he's pushed past it with denials. I mean, even after the admission, there's a denial. Right. It's an odd fact, and that also sticks out to me.
But I think the anger was stoked by Trump being elected. When women see that, okay,
well, he got away with it.
Yeah, he got away with it. He's now the president of the United States. There's no longer a standard for men. If that,
Although I was very, very struck, and I have told this story before, but I think like many people, when that Access Hollywood tape came out, I thought, oh, that is it.
That's it. Absolutely.
Absolutely it. My daughter, who is 11, was at a sleepover birthday party in the posh suburb of Encino. And when I picked her up the next morning, and it's all these sort of fancy rich moms, married ladies in their late 30s, early 40s, I was like, huh, that's it. It's over. And 3 of them immediately were like, come on, that's how men talk. I mean, he was just telling you that's how men talk. And then I don't consider myself a choir boy, but I was like, gee, I don't talk that way.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I didn't like that either because I think I hate it when
I'm a comedy
people do
writer
that.
and I don't talk that way.
That's locker room talk. That's the way guys talk. No, I don't talk that way either.
I don't talk that way at all. So I just thought that was so, but it was so matter of fact, and in a way, maybe that brings up, the sort of gender vortex in that, and all these words. What is innocent flirtation? What is, hey, if I tell you that, our new security guard looks hot, I'm just complimenting her, right? I mean, isn't that positive news to share? Which may now be a naive thing.
Right.
So it's very confusing.
I don't know. I mean, I don't feel like the rules have changed. I feel like they're being enforced. I feel like we all basically knew what decency was before a month ago. And I think the source, if it's you saying, "Hey, the security guard looks hot," probably unless you're drooling and going, "Ooga, ooga," then that's still probably an innocent thing.
Right.
But I think that the defense of the rules have changed so fast isn't valid, really. I think we all, Louis C.K. knew what he was doing was wrong at the time.
And actually, I thought in his statement, and these statements are compared and reviewed.
Right.
I thought it was very interesting, and I'll paraphrase, but he was like, "I've been running away from this for a long time. I knew this was going to get me."
Right.
And
that's why I believe he can be part of the conversations.
Right.
Or should, or could be part of the conversation if people would allow him to when the time is right.
Right.
Not
so,
now.
and how is that all
Not
determined?
now, Louis. But I just, But like I was saying, I don't feel like it's a valid thing to say I grew up at a different time. The rules are the same. They're just it's like they say with gun laws. It's like the rules are on the books. They just need to be enforced. Well, these rules are on the books, I think.
There are a lot of these one-offs along the way. Like Dustin Hoffman had a one-off and he apologized, meaning that a woman accused him, but it's just a one woman.
Right.
Steven Seagal, he was accused by 2 women of rape. He denies those allegations. I'm surprised that Arnold Schwarzenegger's name hasn't been floated more because Schwarzenegger was spoken of openly. Remember at the time? I mean, this is
maybe it's because he's already done his shame parade.
Right, well, you know what? I was about to say a similar thing, and actually a funny story to bring up a moment of levity to the proceedings. So I have a family friend who's a priest, which is unusual.
Wow.
And he calls me twice a year to bring school groups to our TV station to do tours. I hear from him. I could almost literally tell you, November 8th, he calls, every year. So I get a call from him completely out of the blue, not during the appropriate time. I was like, Sam, I'm on the cover of the National Enquirer. And I'm like, what did you do? And he said, I baptized the housekeeper's baby. And there's a photo of me and the housekeeper and Arnold and Maria and the baby.
Wow.
And he's like, what should I do? And I'm like, I don't really know. But because you recall for the longest time, and now that's actually an interesting story because now that kid who's a teenager looks more like Schwarzenegger than Schwarzenegger does.
Right.
But initially it was like, oh, isn't this great that our housekeeper had a baby? So
no, that really was the great twist, was that as the child grew, there was nowhere to run.
Right. It's like the Al Franken picture. It's like there's nothing you can do with that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But
May I have some more toast, Daddy?
exactly. But the list just goes on and on.
And it's going to keep going.
Yeah.
I think we're at like 20% of the list.
Oh, really?
If that.
Okay, but if that's the case, then, I'm not saying my wife has mercenary tendencies. She's like, did you call about that Charlie Rose job yet? And,
listen, that conversation's been had a million times by
already-
everyone.
But-
I already texted 3 people who I think would be good for the job.
yeah. I actually know a guy who I think is going to get it.
That's
yeah,
cool.
But
Where is he now?
In Chicago.
Oh, that's great.
Who knows? But in area, let me phrase it different. He thinks he's going to get it.
I see. Okay, that
but-
is different.
I mean, okay, that's interesting. 20% because that's a lot. Let's do the math. So at least 10 now. That means
Maybe
50 more to go.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, you have Jeffrey Tambor also. That and his series has been canceled
and again, back to this. His participation in the series has been canceled. I don't think the show's been canceled.
No, but it's. I'm hearing more and more out of that. And you as well. I'm sure saying, hey, look,
you can't do the show. You can't do transparent without the transparent.
Right.
And in that case, I was just having this discussion today. There's 1 or 2 scenarios. Scenario 1, which I don't believe, it's so bad he took himself out because he doesn't want it to be investigated further. Or B, he's so mortally wounded and offended that this show, I mean, the woman created it and all that, and credit to her, this show does not exist without him. It doesn't go on the air without him. Certainly would never have stayed on the air without him. And this is the thanks I get?
I believe the latter.
Yeah,
with
me too.
him. With him.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's exactly what I think.
It's only the one allegation,
It's
so.
2.
It's 2.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
But in both cases, the can I say this? The I don't know. I was going to say the dry hump allegation. While we're talking, by the way, now we'll get to the next Pixar story. What is it that he did?
Oh, yeah.
John Lasseter's pattern of alleged misconduct, detailed by Disney Pixar insiders, was known for grabbing, kissing, making comments about physical attributes.
Okay, I take it back about the security guard. Don't do the security guard thing.
Rashida Jones,
What does she say?
that is credited as a writer on Toy Story 4, the next installment, but sources tell The Hollywood Reporter the actress and her writing partner at the time, Will McCormick, left the project early on after John Lasseter made an unwanted advance.
Wow, that's huge. Because Rashida Jones is hey, her dad is Q.
Right.
Lasseter is known to
Quincy.
drink heavily at company social events such as premieres, but the source says the behavior was not always confined to such settings. It is hard to overstate Lasseter's value to Disney. I'm just going quickly.
Yeah, go ahead.
And then, here come the anecdotes. Some say women at Pixar knew to turn their heads quickly when encountering him to avoid the kisses. Some used a move they called the Lasseter to prevent their boss from putting his hand on their legs. A longtime insider said he saw a woman seated next to Lasseter in a meeting that occurred more than 15 years ago. She bent over and had her arm cross her thigh, the best I can describe as a defensive position. John had his hand on her knee, though, moving around. She said it was unfortunate for her to have worn a skirt that day, and if she hadn't had her hand on her leg, his hand would have traveled. Oh, God.
Wow. Yeah, when they name things after the guy,
Right.
like, you got Charlied or whatever
Yeah, it's
with
like
the shower thing
it
on
becomes
Charlie Rose.
built into the culture of your
Yeah,
company.
then you know that it's just. And again, you wonder, because he's so powerful, once again, that's why no one came forward.
Isn't he not only the head of Pixar, he's a president at Disney, is he not? I
Yeah,
think.
what do you want to do? You work at Disney. Do
Right.
you want to bring down the company? Do you want to be the person? And it's your word against his. Although I don't know.
Well, I'm sure. There are. I'm sure tons of women for whom it's baked in for them too, and it's not.
Just as an aside, Jenny Garth and husband Dave Abrams are, quote, going through a rocky patch, People magazine reports.
Okay, good to know.
So
Good
there's-
to
By
know.
the way, Jenny Garth is so gorgeous
And nice.
And now, is that bad to say?
No, I don't.
Okay,
think
that's
yet.
still
Not yet.
Okay, I just want to. Jeez, when I did the red carpet, Sam does all the red carpet events at the various,
Yes, of
and
course.
they're terrific. And my first red carpet event when I came to Hollywood was the Emmys, and Jenny Garth came up in this red dress. She was stunning. I still remember that, and I thought, oh my God! That's what a star looks like. And now that she and her husband are having rough times. This is tough.
But
25 years later.
But this is a story that is at least 25 years old. I did a talk show briefly with our friend and colleague Dorothy Lucy. And
Scoop.
We were asked by a then young and unknown Charlize Theron, could she do something not for air, just to get some tape that she could show somebody else? And it's a podcast, I can say this. And so we had our standard choreography, and here comes Charlize Theron, and she would walk across the way. And apparently with my microphone on, I said quite audibly, Jesus Christ, look at that.
Wow. She, I think, she is
She qualifies.
the most beautiful woman I've seen on this planet.
Right.
Whatever, pervs.
But I'll tell you, people can't get her name right. It's Theron.
Right.
And I saw went on that Kelly and Ryan show.
Sure.
And they say, Kelly says, well, I understand you've got a new foundation. And she says, yes, it's the Charlize Theron Education Foundation. And she said, oh, that's great. Well, congratulations on that. So she's just said her name correctly, right? In that. And so then she goes, so do people interact with you like naturally, or do people go, wow, that's Charlize Theron? And I'm thinking, wow, just 4 seconds ago she said Theron, and now you're at Theron.
I can, as someone with the last name Weinstein.
Oh God, how do you feel about that?
It's been not that fun a couple months, really.
Did you guys hear the LeVar Burton one today?
No, what happened?
Okay, so I get all these. Lorenzo Ball's father is named LeVar, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So he had this, again, when we recorded this conversation, had that ridiculous thing with Chris Cuomo on CNN last night, which was a 5-minute interview. And then because of his, I think, very deliberate, I think he completely played CNN. The producer in Chris Cuomo's ear was like, this is gold. Keep going.
Right.
And so they went for 20,
it
25
was a
minutes.
soundbite bonanza.
Totally uninterrupted. Anyway, LeVar Burton, the respected actor from Roots and the beloved Reading Rainbow, is now getting angry tweets from people. Like, how can you not appreciate our president? Your son is garbage. And LeVar Burton needed to remind people that there's more than one person of color named LeVar.
Right. Harvey Firestein got a lot of crap.
Right,
Harvey
right.
Weinstein.
Oh, that's right. Sure. Well,
everyone's Norm Crosby in a crisis.
Well, look, the heads of studios, the heads of magazine, Jan Wenner from Rolling Stone, he was accused. I don't think he stepped down, though.
Yeah.
There's more and more in politics, as we mentioned, Franken. And, of course, the Roy Moore thing is what really, really torched this thing.
Although, again, during the day that we were recording this, Roy Moore's people just listed a lengthy and almost Alice through the looking glass denial. The person at the mall says we've never banned anyone from the mall, and a few other things.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
And he was the worst candidate possible before this.
Right. Right. Yeah, you don't need to get to the sexual misconduct to see the problems. I'm so glad that you came by, Sam. We wanted to get an idea. This is just a sense of it. But as things in this town just were on fire with these allegations, and look, even during the time we've been speaking, this huge thing breaks.
Oh, jeez. And in a way, huger than all the rest from the perspective of a person with current power. One thing that people were talking about initially, Bill Cosby, Bill O'Reilly, Harvey Weinstein.
Right, past their prime. People.
Right, they were past their. They were toppleable.
Right.
But John Lasseter, right in the thick of it, at the prime of his powers.
Right. But here's the difference. I mean, the difference between him and Harvey Weinstein is people like John Lasseter.
Exactly right.
And people.
Well, and now the voice in the wilderness. Which is funny. Now for some reason I think about this a lot. Does Billy Bush just sit at home going, "Wait, what?"
Right.
Yeah, that's again like
That's collateral damage.
Yeah, like so many of these stories. It's sort of like, how can this be that I have paid this huge price just
for laughing?
Yeah. And I think Anthony Weiner sits there cool on his heels going, I can't believe this. These guys, I don't know.
No, he's in their league. Come on.
Is he?
Yeah, I think so.
And did you ever see, which by the way is highly recommended, the documentary about him?
Yes, it's terrific.
It's terrific. And then this happens, this is always the truth, the great documentaries. The crew just happens to be there.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's like, what was the one with they find out they're child molesters after finding, come on. Oh my God.
Oh, the Goldberg.
Yeah, it's not Goldberg, but it's like that.
Yeah.
Capturing the Freedmen is what I'm thinking.
Capturing the Freedmen.
They go there for one thing, and then the film crew finds out that they're there's child molestation most likely going on in this family. And
Well, hey, speaking of documentaries, Louis C.K. is the opening frame of my doc, which comes out in 2 weeks.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm thrilled about that.
And would you ever give thought to changing that or not?
I certainly would give thought to it, because unfortunately, just because of the timing
Right.
of it and the fact that it had already basically been distributed, it doesn't damage what the thing of the movie. It's a movie about stand-up comedy, and it's totally off. It's a clip of, he didn't even participate.
Right.
It was a clip of him on the Tonight Show talking about my subject.
In a promotion reel for an award show that I work on, the fifth frame is Kevin Spacey.
Really?
So,
Wow. I love the fact that you pointed out here at the end, the fact that there is a different standard being applied to different people who are involved in this, in Hollywood, in politics.
well,
And it's based on what you're talking about, which is denials and
the quality of your denial, the quality of your apology. Are you liked? Are you not liked? Are you thought of as expendable or not expendable?
Right there,
A
yes.
variety of things. And I tell you what, I marinate on this. I think Billy Bush had plenty or some friends in Los Angeles, and thus, a long and big career. I think the minute they moved him to New York, he hadn't a single friend in New York.
Right.
Not one. Didn't make any friends in New York. And when it all went south, boom. Had he had literally one friend in New York or a friend of prominence in New York, it might have had a different outcome.
And to our audience, I will say this before you shed a tear for Billy Bush, he did get $10 million on his way out the door.
Well, it's funny, and I've met him, but I don't know him at all. I think that's fair, because I think the claim is, A, he made this tape with Donald Trump a dozen years ago, and you knew who he was, Billy Bush.
Right.
You promoted him and gave him more and more, there was never, if you're Billy Bush, I'm doing the exact right thing. I'm doing exactly what you want me to do this whole time. And then kaboom. I think there is, this is the documentary I want to make. And I want to use Billy Bush and very likely some of the other names that we've talked about.
Yeah, it's great. You got more candidates now.
Just call it Pariah. Or what happens, I think there must be this, and I'm sure it's happened to some women, though I can't think of any. Let's go back to the Charlie Rose timeline. Tuesday at 12 noon, you're the king of the world. Wednesday by 8 a.m., you're fired. You're
through.
Everything's over. And the one that I think of, do you remember Stephen Collins?
Sure.
So the dad from Seventh Heaven, who is a fine actor and worked successfully as an actor in films and in television.
Has an sort of all-American look and been in those kinds of roles.
And not to the manner born, but upper middle class or rich sort of patina on him.
Right.
Very nice guy. And so out of nowhere, he is in the middle of an ugly divorce, and a tape emerges from his therapist's office. And in the tape, he admits to some things in keeping with what we're talking about now.
Right.
So the tape comes out overnight, a big TMZ story. And I remember, and again, I don't know him, but I've seen him, dozens of times. And I, in that case, had his email. And so this was TMZ, and, all apologies to Harvey Levin, but TMZ is right 92% of the time,
right.
94% of the time. So TMZ is like, Stephen Collins admits to, huge misdeeds in this blockbuster tape. So I send him a note, and I say, look, sometimes I know they misunderstand the context. Perhaps this was a rehearsal for a play. Perhaps there's some other explanation. And, before the whole world goes crazy, I just want to say to you, hey, I'm thinking about you. Is there any other explanation? And if I sent that email at 7:01, at 7:03, he responds back, no, there isn't. And
wow,
it was just like, oh, and I have never seen nor heard from him again.
No.
And he has been in the wilderness 5 years, at least more, considerably more than that.
And because it involved also a child or a 12-year-old.
Under 8.
Anyway, you're right. The fall from grace and is there a way to reconstitute yourself in any way?
Right.
To get that stink off you.
And then I really think about this, because a guy like that, to me, who's fairly, if not very recognizable. Do you move to Iceland? Are you working at a gas station in South Carolina?
Right.
Or what do you do?
What do you do with your life?
What do you do with your life?
Yeah, it's a really provocative and interesting question. Yeah. I think that would be a great doc for us to do, J. Elvis, with Sam's help.
Sure.
Yeah. J. Elvis's documentary comes out December 5th, starring Louis C.K.
Will you stop it?
Poor Josh at Louis C.K.'s on the first 30 seconds. And
That he's gone. That he's gone.
Is the documentary come to any conclusions about stand-up comedy, or just?
It's about stand-up in Asia.
Oh,
it's about doing stand-up in Asia. It's good.
Yeah,
It's
Okay.
good.
It's about
called
the
I
scene
Need-
that's kind of growing up over there, and I follow 3 American comics over there.
oh, terrific. Okay.
Yeah, so there are American guys over there, and that's kind of cool. And they're told don't say this or
Right.
don't make fun of that, and it's sort of funny. And then of course they do say that, and then they do make fun of that. It's good. It's called I Need You to Kill. So, Sam, thank you for coming by.
No, but I tell you what, this is not only among the world's best and most beloved podcasts. This particular episode is now a historical document because these things happened in real time while we were recording.
That's
I mean,
right.
it's just amazing.
Listen to an entertainment reporter getting the scoop
Yeah.
as it happens.
I think I might put it up as a special holiday week. Special sexual harassment holiday week.
As we unzip a special show.
We actually had an actress on today who's not widely known, but like many who I think's career is she does one of these Hallmark movies every year. She's on the list of the 30 or 40 actresses who do a Hallmark Christmas movie, and I don't know how to describe it. It's like whimsical chimes and sort of the doo whimsical oboe. And I said, I was like, do they hire a special chime player or bell player? She goes, I think they do.
Well,
Hey, Irv, we need the number 6.
Well, Sammy, we love you on the KTLA Morning News, which is now, 11 hours long?
It never stops. It was on while we were doing all this.
Yeah. You're on at 6, though.
I'm on. It's like a DJ shift now. I'm on at 6, and I'm on till 6 a.m. till 11 a.m.
Wow.
It just seems, I think that's excessive. Excessive.
That's a telethon.
No.
That's an excessive demand that they put on you.
No, I think it's unfair. But
I will say the nice thing is that, you're my absolute favorite. You've been my favorite since I got to town. And I like that you get so much stuff for free, which
Yes.
does make up for it.
Yeah, you got it wired.
I can't complain about that.
You do have it pretty plugged in. Anything else as
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
leaving?
I'll give all my social plugs. It's
Yeah.
because I think that's important, right? They keep saying
Yes.
that. For Twitter and Instagram, it's at Sam on TV, and my Facebook is facebook.com/SamKTLA. I should uniform them all, but I don't know how to switch the Facebook.
It's hard to uniform them all, after the fact.
Right.
And he is at J. Elvis Weinstein. If you want to talk to our J. Elvis Weinstein, I'm at Mark T. Live. Thank you, Sam Rubin.
Okay.
All right. Keep the bathrobe fastened, Sam.
First of all, it's great to be on the show with all of you and all that and all these things. I love it. And if you enjoy listening to The Edge, subscribe to The Edge on iTunes, the Stitcher, and you can totally listen to it on iHeartRadio.
Please welcome to our microphones for his annual visit. No one brings holiday cheer like Bobby Slayton.
Thank you. I love your studio audience. It's a lot like when Darlene Love used to do a Christmas song on the Letterman show. And that was always a beautiful annual thing, that Phil Spector number. But, I'm watching you work the control board here. I guess your producer's out sick, too. And it just, I got to have you over to my house. I bet you know how to, and I hate to sound like an old fart, the TV remote controls. I just got a new TV yesterday, 2 new TVs.
Did you get to a 60-inch or whatever?
The new thing that's
the smart TV. What'd you get? You get the 4K.
I never had a 4K.
There's too much though. It's a Roku enabled. Is the Chrome built in?
It's all that stuff. But there's a newer one that just came out where I get the 55-inch for my bedroom with Sony HG 4K, beautiful, for I think $800. One of these big Black Friday holiday sale things. But then there's a newer thing out, and it's $2,500 for 55-inch as opposed to $800. And I looked at both of them. I'm going, you know what? I can barely see the way it is. It's good enough. How much do you really need to see? And I'm not sure I like the idea when you watch an old TV show that it almost looks like a play. You watch like The Munsters or Gilligan's Island, and it looks like you're really there. I don't like the reality. I like to have that scratchy, old black and white Boris Karloff movie.
Thank you. I completely agree with that. There's a glossiness almost of television production or movie that is being lost with this 4K stuff. I thank you.
Although, I'll be honest with you, one of my favorite movies, maybe my favorite movie of all time, and I think Dana Carvey is the other guy. If you ask him his favorite movie, Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein, a movie I grew up with, not only loving Abbott and Costello, but loving monsters and the way they blended it. One of the great, classic Americana, Universal movies. And that movie I'd like to see because I've seen it so many times. I wouldn't mind seeing it,
In a different
cleaned
way.
up in a different way. But it does. The movies do look too real. I like when you watch a James Bond movie, it's slick, it's film.
You're right. It looks like I'm watching a rehearsal or something. I don't like it. Honestly, I didn't think that this new clarity existed. But it does, even on the old shows.
And now I'm saying there's a better one now. And I'm okay. This is the HG 4K, whatever the hell it is great. Especially since I've not had a new TV for 12 years. So I was telling you before I came here, look, everybody who has a house has house problems. My two TVs not only broke down within 1 week of each other, so I needed new televisions.
When you say broke down, they don't turn on, or they
One
don't.
of them just, they wear out, and it gets to the point where what it's like when you buy a DVD player now. It's not worth replacing anything because you can just, even though you bought it 2 or 3 years ago and it was a heavy piece of machinery and it cost a few $100, for $75 you get a Blu-ray that's 10 times. You throw stuff out.
Yeah.
They don't recycle it. It's not worth fixing. My TV, my old one was so big, and the TV guy I know, look, I can put the bulb in, I can replace this. It's going to cost me a couple of $100. And I might as well just buy a new one. But here's what kills me. So I'm looking at you doing your controls, and I'm thinking, okay, it took me years and years and years to understand how to even work my DirecTV. So now my electrician is over a few weeks ago. Both my thermostats went in my house, my smoke detectors, my house is cursed. It's like, it really is a money pit. Everything goes up.
You got a beautiful home. That when Bobby came into our beautiful hilltop, we have a pool here, and the pool is filled with leaves, and it's having some issues right now because my pool guy I think he's having some illness, and he doesn't text, and he doesn't have his voicemail set up.
Obviously, your maid is also sick as your recycling guy. This place is like Boo Radley, To Kill a Mockingbird. It's like,
Wow. Actually, the maid just came this morning. That's a bad sign.
You should call this place the House on Haunted Hill. I'm surprised not a dark cloud like 1313 Mockingbird Lane where everything else is nice. And we pulled to your studio here, and there's dark clouds and bats coming out of the trees, and the trees will throw apples at you. So
I didn't realize
So
it.
nobody's had more problem with their house. So here's how it starts. A few weeks ago, I decide I'm going to get this new, the Nest and the Ring. You have.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's all, you can program. Not that I need it, but you can turn on your air conditioner, your heating from, if you're on the road, you're coming home. And it's also.
Because you are away a lot, so unless you kind of monitor your
Right.
house.
And one of my thermostats was kind of on the fritz. It's been there since I've been in the house for 15 years. So I had my electrician come over, and I said, as long as I'm here, my girlfriend's talking about, you should dim the kitchen lights, and you should put a dimmer in the bathroom. My wife never did that, so he's doing that, and it's fine. And then when it comes time to putting in my new thermostats and my new smoke detectors, he goes, well, these work by, you have the internet, and you go, online, and you have to. But it turns out I had this AT&T internet, and it was so shitty up at my house for so long. Never knew why it was so bad. I call AT&T. It's got like 3 megabits when you should have at least 100.
Right.
At least 100. And the guy says, well, in order to work your Nest and your Ring, you need at least 30, 40. You need some kind of better connection. So I call AT&T, and they say to me, oh, well, we don't have underground cables like Spectrum has. I go, nobody ever told me this. I couldn't understand why, for years, I had such a crappy service. And AT&T kept coming in and giving me a new router, but it doesn't do any good because I have 3 megabits of power up there. Okay. So my electrician said you need something better. And I call up my computer guy because you got to get Spectrum. It's a Time Warner. It's great in your neighborhood. All my neighbors have it. And my electrician goes, I'll come back. That's why right after this, he's coming back. He goes, I'll come back when you get that set up.
Yeah, Bobby said, you got to start in town because I got to go back from my house.
I got to get back to okay, so this is weeks ago. I finally have Spectrum come in, and they're fucking everything up. Then the first guy doesn't put he's not hooking my TV up right. And my remote controls aren't working. And we had them come up 3 times. I'm not making this up.
But is this like the standard issue guy, or do you have a video guy? Like,
No,
I've got a guy who does it, and he's great.
Spectrum, it's for free. They put the
I see.
system
Okay.
in.
Okay.
They put in my...
But it seems like you get what you pay for.
They hook up my 2 TVs, and now I'm trying to figure out how to work the Spectrum remote controls because I'm an idiot. Okay. I finally get it down, and for some reason the TVs still aren't working. The Spectrum guy comes back up again last week, and he goes, this TV's shot, and the problem with this one, he goes, I'll show you, the wire, it's going out. He goes, you see all the dots on the screen? He goes, it's not Spectrum, it's your TV. So I go to Best Buy, like I said, get a couple more TVs. I have my electrician coming over today. I have the new, powerful, megabits, whatever the hell. Hopefully everything will work. So yesterday, I get my, the Geek Squad comes up. They put in my beautiful TV, beautiful big one in my bedroom, gorgeous one in my living room. And now I'm trying to work my remote controls, and I can't figure out. Now there's something else wrong with them. Now that, it's like every day something goes on in this house. And this might be my fault this time, but then my roof went out a couple of months ago. My
That's
wife,
it. You mean you got a leak in you had to get to replace the roof?
spent $7,000 2 weeks ago in my the closet in my house. My late wife, her closet. I never emptied her stuff out. I finally got rid of it after a year, and I see the walls are all black. back. A pipe had burst years ago. Nobody knew because everything was hidden by boxes and all the goddamn shoes. So the mold guy's coming over, the floor guy's coming over, the spectrum guy's coming over. Now I got my electrician coming.
Well, that's a hell of a Thanksgiving.
And
you
I'm
got planned.
broke. I'm broke. I don't have money to pay for all this crap. Could I sell this house for a couple of million and move to like Portugal and live like a king and eat sardines, get Portuguese hookers and have a great time? Yes, and I might just do that soon.
I love that plan.
My girlfriend's up for that without the hookers. She wants to get out of this country.
And she thinks that Portugal's a place to go?
Yeah.
Why Portugal? Portuguese is not an easy language to learn, I don't think.
There's a lot of Americans living there.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Not, and if you go to Oakland, you find a lot of English isn't an easy language. So, these people grew up here. So, it's all relative.
Did you consider, like, I like this idea that you might move, but, you'd have to reinvent yourself in Portugal.
Well, here's the problem. First of all, I'd retire to either Barcelona. I
can't retire.
I can retire. Nobody understands that I've been doing stand-up comedy more than. Leno's probably has been working longer. Robert Klein certainly, Leno, but nobody puts in more shitty hours and more coach, airline, flights late, flight canceled, crappy morning radio. And the audiences are just getting dumber and dumber and younger and younger. When stand-up comedy, when I first met you, 70s, 80s, when that stand-up boom was happening, people my age would go to comedy clubs. Now, they might show out to see Jerry Seinfeld on Broadway, Louis Black in a theater. But for the most part, I think people stay home. People my age who are 60 years old. I love staying home. I love just going out to eat. I love my Netflix. There's no reason to go anywhere.
Yeah, but there's a civility to what you just described. If you're a little older, you like that civility. It's a little more of a chill thing. You go into a comedy club, and I love comedy. You go into a comedy club, though, you're cramped in. There's a 2-drink minimum, and there are these drinks on the table from the other couple because you can't get your own table.
Awful.
And so they're spilling, and it's just a little bit of it's tough. So if you're a little more used to a civil situation, then you'd like the old days, I suppose, in the 50s and 60s when it's like almost a Vegas white tablecloth experience.
Right. Well,
I see someone like you. People have told you that. Like you're almost you go around. Yeah. How about you, Chachi, or whatever? Right. You could go table to table. You played fucking Joey Bishop in the.
Yeah. Well, those days are over. If you look at
those days are over, huh?
Yeah. When I was in Vegas for a couple of years, and when I did that Rat Pack movie, and I played Joey, I did so much research on Vegas, and I was such a fan of the old Vegas, which was before my time. The mob Vegas, the start of Vegas, the height of showbiz. All the comedians and the showrooms and
from a show business standpoint, it was a better scene than it is now.
I was never part of that. That was kind of before my time. But from talking to guys like Don Rickles and talking to some of the old time comics, and I remember running to Rickles once at the airport, and I was going to. That's when we would sometimes do 3 shows a night in a few of these clubs. It was awful. You do like 7, 9, and 11 o'clock show, and I worked really fast, and
No, it's exhausting what you do.
I only have a drink or two before each show, but then maybe a drink after. By the time you get to the third show, you gotta really take it. It's you're exhausted, do morning radio. So I said to Rickles, and the 11 o'clock show would sometimes start to 11:30, quarter to 12. By the time you get people in, get people out. And I said to Rickles, I go, God, we're doing these 11 to 12 o'clock shows. How did you guys do a 2 a.m. show? He goes, 2 a.m., try 4 a.m., because these guys go on 4 a.m.
Sinatra used to go on 4 a.m. I heard stories about that.
Or he would go, or he'd come see Rickles, and Elvis would come in and see these guys play
right.
3, 4 o'clock. And if you see photos of these days, I saw some in some book, Elvis watching so-and-so at the 3 o'clock show, Louis Prima, and everybody's all dressed up. And the men have hats. Not that anybody should do that anymore, but it was a civility to it. And there was, and look, I don't wear ties on stage. I wear a T-shirt, occasionally a sport coat. But, when you're in Vegas now, and if you're lucky enough to have the time and money to go to a 4 or 5-star restaurant, and you see some asshole show up in shorts and a dirty T-shirt and flip-flops, fuck you, bring in your kids and your fat wife, and, if you wear a T-shirt, put on a clean T-shirt, put on long pants.
Right.
It's like guys on airplanes who wear flip-flops. I don't want to see
that's
little
horrible.
man toes.
That's horrible.
Women.
And then they put their feet up on the seat or
Yeah,
that's awful. But yeah, I do feel as though the showbiz experience has been degraded a little bit by some of the stuff you're talking about.
Well, I think it's because so many people, a lot of kids are just don't know how to act or how to dress, and not that I did. But there was.
But to be fair, like even when I go to a concert now, I look like I'm going to a ball game or something. And when I go to a comedy club, I look like I'm because I'm not going to.
It's fine. Well, why should you get dressed up? You know.
But your point is well taken. Like on dinner, and I still feel like that world of the banquettes and the the white tablecloth thing and a bottle of wine, and then there's a comic who comes on. I mean, you see it in these throwback period type films and television offerings, but that just looks like maybe I've romanticized it. Maybe you've romanticized it too much.
You see, the thing is, if I go out to a nice steakhouse, you want to wear a nice jacket. You being a vegan, you can dress like a farmer because you eat at those kind of places where they sell like oats and coconuts. So you can dress like you're on Gilligan's Island because that's the kind of environment you're in.
Here it comes.
Farm to table is more like farm to you and whatever. If
you don't think Woody Allen would have me over because I'm a vegan? He wouldn't have me over for a lot of other reasons.
Yeah, but there's a lot of reasons way before that.
Right. Vegan wouldn't be in the top 10, Mark.
We wouldn't get that far.
Bobby's pals with Woody Allen, for those of you who may have not heard our last conversation.
I don't know if I say pals. I don't have his cell phone number.
Oh, you
sure
don't?
He has a cell phone.
How does he reach you then?
It's like Batman or Superman. You just shine a light. You get Commissioner Gordon to shine a light. You can find me. I can find him if we need to find each other.
You've been to his house for dinner more than once.
Well, not his house, a friend's house. We meet at a buddy's house.
But he invited you.
Well, it doesn't matter how I got there. First time I actually invited myself, to be honest with you.
Is that right?
Yeah, I invited myself.
How did that happen?
Well, my friend is good friends with Woody, and it's a long story, but...
He's a comic or not?
No, he's just a friend of mine. And
manager? He's a rich guy. I remember this now.
My rich businessman.
Yeah, he's a very rich fellow.
And he's just friends with Woody. They're neighbors, and I don't know how they know each other, but my friend came to my show in Florida, where he has a home, and he just kind of, as an aside, just matter-of-factly mentioned, no, by the way, Woody Allen's a fan of yours. It turns out Woody thought I did. He got me mixed up with somebody else. So now he'd seen me on TV, and he loved a joke of mine, and my friend said to him, "Oh, that's Bobby Slayton's joke." I love that guy. But it was another guy. We both happened to do the same joke, but he saw the other guy. It was a whole big, weird, convoluted little...
That makes it better.
He said, yeah, anyway, Woody's coming to my house next week for dinner in New York. And I was in Florida. And I said, really, can I come to dinner? He goes, of course. And they said, I'm not going to come to dinner. He goes, no, Woody would love to meet you. I go, who's coming to the dinner? He just go, Woody, his wife Sun Yi, me, and it'll be you.
Wow.
My friend Jeff has this giant dining room, not quite Citizen Kane, Rosebud dimensions, not that big, but it's big. So, before you sit at this giant dining room table,
with just four people.
It's pretty funny. So, I called up my wife and I called up a couple of comics and I said, I've been traveling a lot. I'm coming back to LA. Do I really want to fly all the way back to New York the following weekend and pay? And I said to my friend Jeff, I said, I don't know if I want to pay for a hotel. He goes, I'll put you up in a hotel. He goes, I own a building or something, whatever. He goes, I got an apartment for you. I feel okay. Well,
wow.
He goes, I'll put you up for the weekend. I'll give you your own furnished apartment.
Your friend Jeff's a good guy, huh?
He's a great guy. So, anyway, so I said, yeah, why not? Because, I remember calling Paul.
I love the idea that you would say, I don't know, I want to pay for a hotel. Then he comes through. Hey, I'll tell you what, I'll put you in a hotel. But I don't have the money, for dinner. Look, I'll give you some walking around money.
It wasn't like, it didn't really come out right. No, I was kind of thinking aloud, more like, God, do I want to fly to New York next week? And, by the time I get the airfare and the hotel and it's not a discounted ticket. It probably costs a fortune. And I'm just kind of thinking out loud.
Yeah, right. No, I get it.
And then he just threw that in there. So now I'm thinking I got to go. And I called a couple of comics and I said, listen, I just got an invitation to go back to New York. And look, and no matter what your listeners or anybody thinks of Woody Allen as far as that child molesting thing goes, which I don't think ever happened, and there's a lot of proof why it never happened, but I don't know. I'm not taking sides. And maybe his movies aren't as great as, he came up with the Blue Jasmine, and maybe it's not with Sandy Hall, but he's still the most legendary filmmaker working today, I mean, there's 3 or 4 people that everybody, I think, wants to work with. I mean, Scorsese probably, maybe a Tarantino. I don't know, the Coen brothers. I don't know. But Woody Allen, if you look at his films, has the best pedigree. The greatest actors who ever lived are in Woody Allen movies. Whether the movies are any good is, another story. So
people are absolutely excited to work with Woody Allen in a Woody Allen movie.
He's a very easy man to work with. So I went back, we had dinner, and it was a 3 or 4 hour dinner. And I made sure, what am I going to talk to Woody Allen about? But it turns out that, I'm certainly not going to talk about his movies. Oh, the movie I really love. I'm not a big...
Going in with a lot of memorabilia for him to sign.
I'm not a big sports fan anymore. I know that he's a big Knicks fan and he loves sports, but I used to be.
Did you school yourself at all on that going in?
No, because I didn't really care about that.
You didn't preload anything? You must have.
Well, what I did was I knew that he was a big jazz fan. You know, a lot of the old standard, you know, New Orleans jazz, because he has got a jazz band where he plays clarinet and he plays all the kind of ragtime, swing time music. And I always liked that, but I'm more of a blues guy. So there was a lot of, you know, what's it called?
Overlap.
Overlap between the two. I should have known that word. There was just testing you. But here was the most important thing. Woody, even though he came of age doing stand-up in the early 60s, 50s, no, 60s, even though that era, and he's from New York, he spent a lot of time in San Francisco. And even though I'm from New York, that's where I started doing stand-up, because San Francisco really had an amazing comedy scene in the 60s. It was the Hungry Eye and the Purple Eye.
Sure.
So there was not only Lenny Bruce and Mort Saul, but there were the Smothers Brothers and Jonathan Winters and Phyllis Diller and Shelley Berman and all these people, even though they were in Chicago and New York. San Francisco was a big, like the music scene back then with the psychedelic music, with the Quicksilver and the Airplane and the Dead. So even though Woody was there in the 60s, I started in the 70s, and we both had a lot of mutual friends, like David Brenner, like the Smothers Brothers. There was a couple of guys that were still bouncers at this club, Enrico's, and we knew a lot of the same people.
Let me ask you a question about David Brenner for a minute, and then we'll get back to Woody
He was
Allen.
a good friend of mine.
He was a good friend of yours. When did you first meet him, and tell me what the hook was with David Brenner? Because I also used to watch him on The Tonight Show and see all these things, but I watch him I go to his Vegas show.
Right.
I remember going with a couple other comics to a Vegas show of his, but I actually broke down his act. It's style. There was something about a dynamic or charisma about David Brenner.
Well, he was the one. David always accused, and I don't buy it, of Jerry Seinfeld from stealing his style, because Brenner was one of the first, and I know who the first was. Observational comics. You ever notice when you look at? You ever notice when a dog walks on three legs? You ever notice that kind of very distinctive style. Very observational. Then Jerry did it, and Paul Reiser did it. Richard Lewis accused Paul Reiser of stealing his style. I don't really see it. And we all had influences.
Sure.
We all had people we look up to. In that case, the Stones stole everything from Robert Johnston and Muddy Waters. Chuck Berry, the Beatles was for Elvis. I mean, we all have influences and people we look up to. So you just take something and you go with it. Every painter, every artist. So anyway, Brenner, was probably the biggest comic in America in the 70s. And he had a TV show in the 80s called Nightlife.
Sure, I saw it.
It went on 11 o'clock. It was like,
it's like a talk show kind of thing.
It was a talk show like The Tonight Show. And, it was one of those, I think Joan Rivers had one. And so Brenner gave me one of my first national TV shots. I think I did The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson before that. I did it once, but he put me out a couple of times. And he was always very nice to me, but we still weren't friends. Different generation of comics. But he put me on. That was really nice. And then we did a couple of benefits in Vegas. I'd run into him. And we're very casual friends. Rita Rudner had a TV show. We did Rita's show together. We just hit it off. Both being New York, well, he's from Philly. Both being East Coast Jews and comics. And then when I got a room in Vegas, he came to see me. I think that's what cements a lot of comics' friendships with another one, when you see the comic actually work. It's like musicians. I know you're a guitar player, but I've never seen you. And then when you see the guy play, go, wow. You get this mutual admiration, this mutual respect for each other.
Sure.
So David and I became good friends. He was living in Vegas, going through another nasty divorce.
Yeah, he was married like 3 times, wasn't he?
Yeah. And we would just go out for dinner together. And, we just hit it up, became good friends. And he went to the first, after I had that dinner with Woody, it was, I just didn't take a picture because I didn't want to ask, and I really should have.
Yeah, I hate that. I've been in these situations where you want to go, God, I really should take a picture, but I want to be that guy who's going, hey, let's get. But everybody is grateful for the picture later.
Yeah, but I'm not going to do it if I'm up at Beverly Glen Center and I see Brian Wilson eating matzo ball soup. I'm not going to. Hey, let's take a picture. No,
but if you had dinner with Brian Wilson, hey, let's get a picture.
Yeah, that would be different. Yeah. That would be different.
I hear what you're saying, but you feel like I've been the add-on here. I don't want to be the guy to ask for a picture.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So me and Woody have that dinner, 3-4 hour dinner, and we're talking about
Hang on a second. So how did you asked David Brenner, should I go to Woody Allen? Was he still alive?
No. David came to the next dinner, but I'll tell you what happened. We'll get back to David. But
okay, go ahead. Woody Allen. So you're at the 3 or 4 hour dinner.
3-4 hour dinner, and again, I knew that Woody was a big Chaplin fan, as I am, even bigger Marx Brothers fan. Anyway, so we had a lot of mutual friends. We're talking. And Woody's very quiet, very nice guy. He didn't really do that Woody Allen character until the end of dinner. And I apologize for my impression here. But at the end of dinner, I think I had knocked off a solid bottle or 2 of wine over a 3 hour dinner, which isn't a lot for me.
And he drinks also?
He had only 3 beers, 4 beers over a 3-hour dinner.
Yeah,
not a lot. And so, we're sitting there. He has 3-4 beers, 3-hour dinner, talking. And I got up to pee 2-3 times. And as we're leaving, I said to Woody, you know what's amazing? We sat there for over 3 hours. You had 4 beers, and you never got up to take a leak. And Woody goes, that's one of my great attributes. That's when he became that Woody Allen character. That's one of my great attributes.
That's great.
But dinner was so much fun that my friend Jeff said, yeah, if you know any other comedians, Woody had a great time. Because we mentioned David Brenner, and David lived half the time in New York. He said, yeah, if David's around, you should bring David to dinner next time, or any other funny people you know. So, first of all, for me to be in New York, for Jeff to be in New York, for Woody to be in New York, not working, that's hard enough to put that together. For other comedians to be available, because everybody's on the road.
Sure.
So Brenner was in town, and he came over, and I called Louis Black. Rare that he's not on the road. He came over. Louis actually had a small part in an old Woody Allen film. I forgot what it was. Maybe I think Hannah and his sisters. And then Woody brought over Dick Cavett, because they've been buddies from day one. Both amateur magicians when they started out, as was Johnny Carson.
I didn't know Cavett was an amateur.
Yeah, I don't know if they ever made money off it, but I know they took great interest in it.
Wow.
Maybe they made money when they were kids. But both Woody and Cavett and Carson were always good at the sleight of hand and all that stuff. So halfway through dinner, David Blaine shows up.
Oh, my God.
And he joins us for dinner. And then, everybody's telling all these little stories. And by the end of dinner, David Blaine goes, does anybody want to see some card tricks? Now, David Blaine, great magician, in the world of magic, from what I hear from other magicians, he's great, but he's not one of the kings of card tricks. But as far as we were concerned, none of us had ever seen sleight of hand like this. And if there are people better, wow.
He's got the magic style.
Right.
You know
like,
what I mean?
Like Penn and Teller.
Right, exactly.
But the bottom line is they're doing a trick, and they have great pattern and great. But
that's that's a great night.
So at least a half hour to 40 minutes we're showing us tricks. And Woody and Cavett were mesmerized, spellbound. But to shut Brenner, me and Louis up for 45 minutes. But but he's doing magic. We're all standing around him in a tight little circle. So it's not like, but he was the best thing. I know a million people have done this. I've seen it done a million times. But I'm really skinny. So my watch that's on my wrist got the strap on it. So I keep it up really tight.
So you have to unbuckle it, you're saying?
Got to unbuckle it. Yeah, to keep it from sliding around because I'm so skinny. I have to put extra holes in the leather strap. So Blaine goes, let me see your hands. Puts the cards in my hands. He goes, now shut your hands. He goes, oh, by the way, what time is it? And my watch should come off. It's harder for me to take that watch off on my own without exerting extra pressure on the buckle.
Right.
I mean, it's not painful or anything, but I know I'm taking the watch off. For him to get that off, for him with one hand to somehow open that little clasp and go under my jacket, and I don't know how so anyway, I know, again, it's been done by a million people before, but to do it to me and then to get that particular watch band off. So anyway, that was a fun 45 minutes. But at the end of dinner...
He's brilliant. Blaine is brilliant.
At the end of, brilliant. At the end of dinner, Dick Cavett pulls the rope trick out of his pocket. The rope trick you buy at Fisherman's Wharf. It's knotted together. Now you take it apart. Now it's a circle. Now it's 2 pieces of rope. He does it flawlessly. But the fact that he even did...
The fact that he has the prop with him is
had it with him.
Yeah. Cavett, I met him on the TCM cruise. They do a classic movies cruise, which, by the way, was great. I mean... It was just great. It was on the Disney boat, and so the reason the Disney boat I don't like, and I'm not a big. No, but they don't play any of the Disney music. But the reason I mentioned the Disney thing is that they do movies and the projection of movies so well. There are these multiple theaters on the boat that you wouldn't find on others. And anyway, Dick Cavett is there, and Dick Cavett was a fountain of endless stories, right? And he knows that. He's a raconteur, and it's unreal.
Well, he interviewed a lot of people, from Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, to, John and Yoko was friends. His talk show was
and he was friends with them, exactly. As you say, Marlon Brando, he tells a story about, Ron Galella, the paparazzo who Brando hit. And so, Dick Cavett, I just saw this past year, and I'd met him, I think, a month before this story broke, that he's selling his place in Montauk out there on, the end of Long Island.
Beautiful out there.
$62 million. The place is amazing. It's an expansive, stunning vista, and it's a huge home, and you understand all these stars have been there. This is where Kate Hepburn spent the night, and he was pals with all of these different people who would spend the weekends there.
I can see where you could spend time in a $62 million house in Montauk. It's have you been out there?
Years ago, but
it's so beautiful. The whole Long Island Sound and the whole the Hamptons, and a little pretentious out there, but I see why all the stars live there and go there. What I never understood was these idiots, these people in the summertime, they'll rent a place for the summer. These people from New York. And you want to get out of New York. I just know where you go there.
But this is a long way. To get there, it's a long route out.
It's a couple-hour drive with no traffic, you
Right.
know? So a lot of these people, they leave work early Friday, like at 2 o'clock with every other idiot. They get out there by 6 o'clock after 4 hours of traffic. They wake up Saturday morning, go to the beach. And then they either leave early Sunday to beat the traffic or late at night. It's great, but...
No,
to go out somewhere for 2 days seems so ridiculous.
I agree. I mean, look, I think life is hard in New York, and I know many of you listening live in New York and around that area. I think it's difficult, and a lot of you have found ways, and that's kind of the trick in that world, to make your life a little bit easier. One of the great things about New York is you can get so much stuff delivered, that there's such a concentration of stuff in Manhattan to do and see without having to go long distances. But the minute you have a place out on Long Island, you've taken that concentration and it's gone.
Well, you know what? Look, I love going to New York, and my friend gives me an apartment anytime I go there. I go there with my girlfriend a lot. She doesn't like the cold. I love the cold, and I love walking around when when it's raining out and people are running around going to work, and I go, I'm not in any hurry to get anywhere. I can take my time and put on my hoodie and just stop in here for a beer, stop in there for some oysters, stop in there for a slice of pizza, go to a movie. When you have nothing to do, no agenda, no place to go, no job to get to, no kids to get home to. But after 3 or 4 days of that, whether it's crappy weather or hot as hell, I want to be in my backyard, like today, my pool. L.A. today.
It's stunning.
It's beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
Middle of November, it's 90 degrees outside.
And your pool and your outdoor area,
which has also cost me thousands and thousands of dollars worth of headaches.
Well, it's money well spent. That's one of the most gorgeous outdoor areas with a pool and a gazebo, and and then there's this view that's from Bobby Slayton's house of the entire valley. It's an expanse.
It's nice.
It's gorgeous.
Well, it's not. Well, some people have a view of all the canyons and then the ocean, but that's those $10 million homes. But my house.
I think that your place competes just because of the way it's laid out.
Well, the great thing is I live there by myself. It's great being by myself. My girlfriend lives 5 minutes away in her house, which is surrounded by redwood trees. And you go down. It's always nice and cool down there because she lives in a canyon, gully or valley. I don't know what it is, but it's surrounded. You feel like you're in Mill Valley.
Where is that?
It's up off of Mulholland.
Wow.
Yeah, beautiful. So it's totally different. My house, like that summer, 4th of July, let's go for a swim.
Yes.
Beachy, Tahiti, tiki.
Right.
Barbecue house. And
That's
hers
exactly
is let's just go down into a jacuzzi.
And for those who missed the first conversation, know that Bobby met his girlfriend at the funeral for another pal of his who had died.
I met my girlfriend at her husband's funeral.
It was her husband's funeral, right? Thank you for reminding me.
You forgot. Is that funny to you?
I think that is a little. I mean, that feels like a plot point. That feels Woody Allen to me.
Yeah, or Hitchcock.
Yeah,
Hitchcock. You kill my wife, I'll kill your husband. Strangers on a train.
That's a darker, right? That's a darker feel.
That's kind of what happened.
But
my wife was there for the funeral. She died 3 months later.
That was awful, as we already said. But it's great that this relationship is a real relationship. It's not like just
It's pretty real. We're having dinner tonight. We're taking the dogs to the beach tomorrow. My dogs haven't been to the beach. Then we're going out for Thanksgiving dinner because we don't want to have anybody over and deal with that crap. And
does she have kids or any of that stuff? Does she have children?
No.
Oh, that's great.
Well, she did. I told her if she wanted to have a relationship with me, she had to get rid of them. So she got rid of them. No, she had no kids. It's great.
I say great because it's one less thing to coordinate at the holidays.
Oh, right. I hate kids. If she would have kids, we'd have to go.
Well, you have
go on those Disney cruises with you and Dick Cavett. It would have sucked. It would have been awful.
You have daughters, very successful.
Right, but she moved out. She's on her own, so that's great. My girlfriend's like you. She's a vegan.
Is she really?
Yeah.
Wow, how great is that?
Well, she's sickly and like you, and she's miserable, and doesn't enjoy life at all.
I believe,
she's
and I know
beans and bananas all day. And
I know it's a displaced machismo that you have that makes you eat the steak or whatever it is. But the truth is that it's definitely a healthier way to go. Stay off animal products.
You know what? I just had my blood checked. It was fine. Look, I died 80 instead of 90. I can die with a skirt steak with mushrooms and onions and bread and butter, nice baked potato with sour cream. Yeah, I've tried all that.
You want to choke on a skirt steak with mushroom and onion? That's where you want to go?
No, I'm just saying I'm dying.
I get it. I get it. You want to live the life you want to live. Okay,
I can live 10 more years eating, bananas.
What is the the reason I do it is for the compassionate thing, ethical reasons. But hey,
I know you do that for the ethical. I get that too.
Yeah.
But fish, come on.
No, fish. I mean, fish. Same thing. Fish for but fish are being overfished. But I don't want to get into that.
Yeah, but fish would eat it. Fish would eat you, and they do if they could.
Yeah, well, they would
eat you.
Yeah, but
And tigers will eat you.
Right, and
tigers don't taste
we
good.
should be smart enough to not be strip mining the oceans of them.
I like the idea of bombing North Korea. Get them before they get you. I don't believe in getting along. Kill them all. God's thought about, right?
I don't understand why so many people are dying young. Like Tom Petty died. It was 60-something. What is that about?
Well, look. Here's the thing. Okay, Tom Petty also led a pretty tumultuous life in rock and roll.
Did he? Was it a lot of drugs and stuff that takes its toll? Yeah, okay.
Drugs and alcohol, but I don't know if that had anything to do with it. He smoked, I don't know if that had anything to do with it.
David Cassidy just died, 67.
He was acting a big alcoholic for a long time.
That's true. He was. Yeah, that's right.
But you know what? Those are the people you hear about. When somebody dies, most people die in their 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
He lived a long life. That's most people. But you don't really think about that. You only think about the ones that, God, he was young.
That's true.
Those are the ones that stick in your mind.
I mean, there's a tennis player just died this week. Yana Novotná is her name. She's 40. She was 47.
Yeah, that happens.
She had cancer.
I know a lot of people in their 30s and 40s died of cancer. She's a vegan, too.
She was not a vegan. I think we bathe in this cancer stuff. It's everywhere. There's plastic and everything. There's carcinogens and everything. The air is getting worse. The water's getting worse. It's so it's I don't blame you for living it up. Go have dinner at Woody Allen's house. I don't blame you.
I don't. I did a lot of steak.
Or at Jeff's house.
I feel bad about cheeseburgers. I ate a lot of turkey burgers. But I put onions and mushrooms in them and shallots, so I get my veggies.
Well, you're a real chef. People should know this. You really can cook.
I'm a good cook.
You're a good cook. Okay, but my point is you can really manipulate taste and all the different ingredients, which is why you should get off all that turkey and bullshit.
What hormone-free turkey?
Doesn't matter. First of all, there are tons of antibiotics because they house these animals in such tight quarters that they're eating their own feces and they're eating. It's awful. Most of them have huge abscesses on their body. You should see it, and it's not just like a random animal here and there.
What about the Whole Foods organic free range turkeys?
I know that's what it says, free range. It's still this huge house the size of a football field, and they're crammed in there and they're bred so they can't even move.
Well, they do that with Mexicans. I don't see you sticking up for them at all.
Well, it's a different show. I'll stick up for Mexicans.
Well, I eat Mexicans too, by the way. Delicious.
You were talking about New York and your general attitude, like I got no place to be. It was sort of zen the way you looked at New York.
Yeah.
And I thought that was, just as you were saying, I thought, wow, it's so contrasted. It's so against your persona on stage and in general. And your persona on stage is like a piece of who you are, which is look at this. This doesn't make any sense. What are you doing? You haven't had that's not a Zen vibe that you put out.
Who said I'm a Zen guy? Where did you come up with this whole Zen thing?
Because you were talking about New York and you said, I got no place to be. I like to just hang out. People are running around with the rain.
Okay, that's the way I am generally in life. When I get up on stage, you got to be a little bit more focused and angry and opinionated and driven. That's a different situation.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure when baseball players are out during the day, they're not sitting there stretching and, and swinging the donut on the baseball bat, spitting all over and grabbing the ball. I mean, they might be. I don't know. But it's part of the playing the game right now. It's part of the job,
I see. Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Now I do,
I mean, some people do take their job home, and some people, I don't. I mean, my girlfriend says it all the time, and people, my wife used to say, you're not on stage now. Everything a joke to you? Well, but I'm always like this. I don't take anything really very seriously, except for that fucking TV of mine I can't get working properly, the goddamn pool.
No, it is fun. By the way, if you need a good TV guy, I've got him. He's amazing.
You got a good TV guy?
Oh, he's the best. He's my gift that I give you at the holidays. He's amazing.
Oh, he does it for free? You pay for it? That would be a gift if you paid for it.
You can't get Jeff to pay for it? Get Rich Jeff to pay for it.
Yeah, I just paid the Geek Squad $300 to hook this goddamn thing up. I'm done paying people. Now they told me, we'll just get the Harmony remote and put everything on one. We'll set up for you for $99. But there's a 4-week wait because now we got the holiday season.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? These should be my biggest problems. I'm not going for chemotherapy or kidney dialysis. I'm not going for a liver transplant.
Right.
So things can be a lot worse than my TV air conditioning problems. It's fine. But I'm not happy unless I'm bitching about something.
Yeah. Well, a house will nickel and dime you to death. And the nickels and dimes are not nickels and dimes. They can be like your roof. That's a fortune.
Well, I had 5 years where I wasn't making any money. My world collapsed around me. I'd say more like 2 or 3 years. You know, when I lost my gig in Vegas, and a new generation of younger comics were coming up and all getting Netflix specials, and my comedy was.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was going to say that it's funny. Some of these things work together. Like I remember your gig when you were a resident in Vegas, and I really loved it. I mean, I just thought it was great. It was, but in order to stay alive, you need that Netflix special or whatever right. I mean,
I was out of it for 4 years. I didn't care because I was working in Vegas, making $1 million a year, which sounds like a lot of money, which it is. But when you have no money, and you have a house in L.A. and 3 cars and a wife and a daughter and college and you all of a sudden you shut by and you wanted Whole Foods instead of spending $10, you're spending $20. It doesn't like a big deal. And, you know, you get a massage once a week and you go play golf and you get a personal trainer and you join a country club. Little things I never had. And what's this isn't a lot? That's not a lot. An agent, manager, 50% bracket in taxes. You know, you start spending more money than you have, you know, so... I paid my opening acts way too much money, and I took him out for dinner every night. So I was having a great time.
And you were being generous.
And then when my gig was up 3 years later, I realized I didn't put away very much. And I learned a very hard lesson.
It's funny, I was having this conversation about somebody who just lost a very high-profile job on a morning show, not Charlie Rose, different. And
sexual harassment charges?
No. This guy is difficult to get along with. Is the problem, and
was it you?
It's why I can't get hired. No, I can't.
That's why I do a podcast in your living room.
But my problem is I'm too easy to get along with.
Yeah.
So I am talking about this guy with my friend, who's also a very well-established media guy on air, and I said, "Well, he's making $10 million a year. I mean, he's got to be." He says, "Well, you run through it." First of all, he said it's not $10 million, and then he started doing what you just did.
Yeah.
He said you got to pay your agent and you got to pay your lawyer,
right.
and then the
and they all
taxes.
They have personal assistants. Some of them have personal chefs. Some of them have a place in the Hamptons, Montauk.
And they said it's like a fire hose. He said the money is pouring out of this fire hose, and you can direct the hose, but you can't
stop it.
Stop it.
Off.
I thought of it because what you're saying is true. You have a certain way. I want to be good to my opening acts. I pay them a lot. I take them out to dinner. I get all this other stuff, which you do because you're feeling good, personal trainer, all this stuff, and before you know it, there's no money left.
Well, you know what? I still piss money away because now, I look at the other side too. That you only live once. We could all be run over by a car in Barcelona. You know, get blown up on a train. You get shot in a schoolyard. I mean, every day, you could be one of these people. Car accidents, cancer. So it's like, let's have a good time while we can. You know, the people that just save their money. I know a couple of comics that don't spend a cent. They put it away. What are you putting it away for? There's millions of dollars here for your children. Go out and have a nice dinner. Go enjoy yourself a little. So my girlfriend is not a big help because she does the same thing that I do. Let's just go out for dinner, you know, and we'll go to a really nice restaurant in Beverly Hills for Thanksgiving.
Where are you going?
Busan.
Oh yeah, that's a great one. Before I was vegan, I used to eat there a lot for breakfast. I love their croissant and all that stuff, and I'm sure that
you can't even have that because butter in them.
That's right. Yeah, I can't
have a croissant.
They do have vegan croissants though, and it's funny you caught that because that is one of my favorite things in life, and I have
and you
been
won't have
denied
that
it.
because there's butter in it.
Yeah, I know. Slayton laughs. Slayton laughs and sneers.
I don't eat them because they're fattening, and I'm working on my stomach. I'm trying to stay in shape.
Do you have a guy to help you or a person to help you with that?
Jesus.
I'm concerned with that also. I think that's a growing concern literally growing concern for us. I mean, as you hit.
I do 200 sit-ups every day.
Wow.
Which isn't a lot, and I don't eat a lot of crap. You know, when I go to New York, you know, my girlfriend's great with this. We eat a lot of pizza. You met.
She's
Dom.
great. She's terrific.
She's a little lady. She's maybe 5'3", 5'4" at the most. She's
a jewelry designer
used to be a personal trainer when she was younger at a masseuse.
Oh.
So she loves to walk. And my late wife, had a bad back and a bad neck and couldn't walk very far. She go, I said, those are the shoes you're wearing, really? She goes, oh, they're really comfortable. Then after 6-7 blocks, they were still fashionable, but they weren't comfortable. But we just got back from New York a few months ago, and, we walked from the Upper East Side down to the Village, over to the West Side, back uptown to the Upper West Side, and cross town. And that's after we stopped. Let's have a glass of wine. Oh, look, it's happy hour. Let's get some oysters and another glass of wine. Let me take you to my favorite pizza place, and we'll have a beer. And I was getting run down. It was a long walk. And then we
That's
stopped.
a great day, though.
But you stop for massages.
Or 4 days, maybe it sounds like.
You stop at the Asian acupuncture back rub guy. Then you stop at the pedicure, Vietnamese pedicure place. So we did pedicures. We go have a glass of wine, walk into the mile. We walk like 30, 40 miles in a day, and it was astounding.
That's great. That sounds like a great, great day.
Maybe not 30, 40, maybe 20 miles. A good 15, 20 miles.
What a fun time. You want to go meet Slayton and his girlfriend? We'll meet them when they get to the village, and we'll have a drink with them, and they're going to continue on.
We meet people.
That's great.
My cousin lives in the village. Tom will be there. And then, so we love doing that. And we were lucky the last couple of times we were in New York. It wasn't too hot. It wasn't too cold.
That's the thing about New York. The weather's good. It's the coolest city.
But if it's freezing, it can be deadly.
Yeah.
And if it's
really hot, it can be rough.
if it's hot, humid, it could be the most disgusting place on earth.
Yeah.
The last time I did Woody Allen's, not his last movie, his last TV show.
Was it Amazon?
Amazon show, Crisis in 6 Scenes, which everybody hated, which I liked. Didn't get great reviews, but it's really good. So the last time I was in New York last winter, it was freezing outside. When I say freezing, I mean it was under 20 degrees.
You met? Who was in the Woody Allen thing?
Well, it was
Woody, and then who was his?
Miley Cyrus.
Right.
Elaine May from
Elaine
Nichols
May,
and
sorry.
I met her for a minute. She was great. She's in her 80s. She came out of retirement to do this for Woody.
She's a legendary writer and
Nichols
performer.
and May.
Nichols and May, yeah.
Yeah, they're a great comedy team. Amazing. Louis Black had a couple of nice scenes, and Judy Gold. But
I liked your stuff in it. Anyway, go ahead.
yeah, it was so. Yeah, well, a good scene with Woody. But anyway, the day we were shooting, it literally was, oh my God, maybe 15 degrees and icy cold, and I was ready for it. And I walked from the Upper East Side down to the village.
Oh,
stopping.
my God.
Yeah, but I stopped every 10 blocks for like a cup of coffee.
Oh, my God,
Yeah,
yes.
Every 10, 20 blocks, you walk fast. But I liked it. When your nose feels like it's burning and
God, you're crazy.
I love that, though. It's so
You're absolutely crazy.
I love that.
Those are the days where I go 4 stores and duck in, and then another 4 stores. I can't get to where
Well, if
I'm
you're in
going.
Chicago on Michigan Avenue and then you get the windshield factor, that's really, really bad. But anyway, so I just love in LA, the problem is I don't do a lot of walking. And in the wintertime, my pool's too big to heat it. So,
And LA's different. You can't walk. You can't. It's
can.
much harder. Much harder.
I guess it depends what neighborhood you live in. And, I have my elliptical in my garage, but I hate being in my garage. I go down there and I work out, and I don't want to sit there for half an hour. So, But my girlfriend's got me taking the dog for a walk all the time in Franklin Canyon. It's beautiful. You forget how LA has so many. As built up and horrible and congested and polluted this town is. It still has a lot of. Looking out from your window here, you can see the beautiful mountains.
It's really pretty. I actually would love to go up to some of these places. I'm worried that I'll look like the creepy guy who doesn't have a dog who's showing up at the dog park.
Really, you should go up to Frank. It's not far from here.
Where is it?
Franklin Canyon. It's off of Mulholland.
Okay, so you go Mulholland to where?
It's where
I take the 405, get off at Mulholland.
your listeners are going to follow us there. I don't want. It's by Coldwater.
Okay.
And what's there is a reservoir from Andy Mayberry where he's skipping the rocks.
Oh, yeah.
That's the reservoir. It looks a little bit different, but the path is still there. It's overgrown a little because it's been 50 years, but it's that's where Opie and Andy were going fishing, picks up the rocks, skims.
Do you watch the old shows like Hogan's Heroes is on a lot, and so is Opie, the Mayberry Show, and so there's now like this nostalgia TV. Do you watch any of that? The old Carson stuff still on?
Not really.
No.
No. I'm so busy with, there's so many shows to catch up with.
Right.
There's like 30 shows I haven't caught up with. It took me a couple of years to catch up with Breaking Bad, another year to catch up with Ray Donovan, another year to catch up with, and there's 20, at least 5 to 15 shows that people go, are you kidding me? That's as good as Ray Donovan. That's as good as Breaking Bad. Have you seen, and Vice, and, there's so.
How about Game of Thrones? Did you?
I never watched it.
Yeah.
Here's my problem I get up really early in the morning and I go hiking with the girlfriend. I work out, I run around doing stuff, puttering, tinkering, doing whatever I'm doing, walking the dog. And then by 4 o'clock, I go, I'm going to cook tonight. But now, time to open a bottle of wine. So 4 o'clock, wine comes out, Pandora goes on, whatever, the Blue Station, whatever I'm listening to. So by 6 o'clock, girlfriend's getting off of work. She comes home for dinner 6 or 7. I'm ready to crack open the second bottle of wine. We take a jacuzzi. She leaves about 8 o'clock. I turn on the news. By 9 o'clock, I've been trying to watch Bill Maher's last show for like a month already. I think the last Curb Your Enthusiasm, it took me 3 times to watch the half hour. So to catch up with shows, and to watch the old shows, You know, it's hard.
No,
for
it's
me
a
to-
significant commitment of time. You're right.
Just
And
to get through the news.
The
just
news
to
show
get
is
through,
yeah.
You know, John Oliver. Just to get through, Ray Donovan. It takes me forever.
Yeah.
I think the last Ray Donovan, literally, 3 or 4 times I watched it.
Feels like Ray Donovan would be a show that you would get a part in for like a I don't know.
You would think a lot of things they'd get a part of, but I don't. Woody Allen's new movie I'm in, I just found out my whole big scene. I'm way in the background. You didn't even hear me singing.
Are you kidding?
No.
Oh.
It's called Wonder Wheel. Comes out December 1st. Had a great scene where I'm singing. I'm leading Max Casella and
Oh wow, yeah.
and who was the other actors? Who was famous actors? My wife. I can't even remember her name. Senior moment. But anyway, so it was a good scene. I'm leading everybody in a little sing-along on a couch, and while Jim Belushi's fighting with his wife, Kate Winslet, and I guess we're way in the background. And so that was that. That was my big scene. Are we almost done?
Yeah, we're wrapping up. In fact,
That's
I was
so
going to
great.
tell you, I'm a big fan of you visiting us annually. This is a great
We didn't
thing.
even get to the holiday talk.
No, I know. I mean, I don't. Are you performing during the holidays?
Not
No.
at all.
And you don't perform on New Year's Eve, you said, anymore.
Not anymore. I just stay home. The less I have to perform, the better.
Okay. Listen, good luck. Bobby Slayton, everybody. Come on.
You should have mentioned BobbySlayton.com. Nobody gives a shit.
Oh, if you want to reach Bobby, he's at BobbySlayton.com. Stay up on all of his dates. Are you on Twitter or any of that stuff?
Pitbull of Comedy.
Pitbull of Comedy. He is the
boy.
Pitbull of Comedy.
Can I go now?
Bye, Bob.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for our conversation with Bobby Slayton and Sam Rubin. Into the holidays we go, and we'll have new shows for you every week. Thanks again for all your support, all the ways you make a difference. Until next time, bye-bye.
Hey, everybody, why don't you do me a favor and like The Edge with Mark Thompson on Facebook? Yeah, that's going to bring in the kids.
I want to thank you for all the ways that you support my friends on the Edge podcast. To show your support and leave something on their website, edge-show.com. Stupid. Why is there a dash? edge-show.com. What's with the dash? Stupid.
edge-show.com.